Hi, I wanted to talk about how not having sufficient beneficial bacteria in your gut can massively impact your health. And I thought I'd run through a case study of a client of mine that came to me just over 6 months ago. And she came to me after 3 months of being on a PPI. So this is proton pump inhibitor. And the reason the doctors put her on that is because she had an ear infection, which led to requiring antibiotics, and the antibiotics then triggered significant gastritis and stomach pains, which led the doctors to put her onto a proton pump inhibitor. So with the proton pump inhibitors, she's been put on 3 different ones because they all trigger different symptoms. Some of them was diarrhea, some of them was stomach cramps, some of it was back pain, dizziness, headaches. But after being on the 3rd one, she started to notice that she was having regular bouts of diarrhea throughout the day. She'd lost half a stone in the space of 3 months. She was having rectal itching. She was having bloating. She couldn't sleep. She was having muscle pain and spasms. She was having regular headaches. She had had a long history of thrush since her teens and also hay fever. So there was some immune stuff going on as well. And she was having issues with urinary tract infections as well. And she was experiencing sort of bladder spasms and inflammation. So when she came to me, she was actually in a real state because she was feeling incredibly anxious. I think being on the proton pump inhibitor had triggered some levels of anxiety in her, and this led to several bouts of panic attacks, which led to having to go to A&E to get seen to. So by the time she came to me, she just didn't know what was going on with her, and she's feeling very distressed. So we did an initial consultation, which highlighted various different things. But one of the first things that I felt we needed to do was to do a full comprehensive stool assessment test. So we obviously did that. We sent off for that. And in the interim period, we looked at removing some of the key trigger foods, whilst also working on modulating the immune system and addressing some of the issues around blood sugar balance, her sleep, supporting her sympathetic nervous system, which was very activated at this point. And looking at doing a little bit of work around digestion once she'd posted off the stool test sample. But I just want to show you what the findings was of the stool test result so that you can see what we ended up with. So basically, the stool test result highlighted that she literally had no growth of bifidobacterium, no growth of lactobacillus. So generally speaking, when we do these stool test results, we want to try and get an idea of what's going on in the microbiome. So it's a really good indication for us to see if someone's got lower levels of bifidobacterium or lactobacillus, because these form the foundation of your immune system. And it's really important that these levels are at an optimum level, because without that, you're just not going to be functioning at an optimal level and your body will struggle. So for her, this is a comprehensive stool assessment test. So it's not just one sample. She's had to do 3 stool samples over 3 separate days. So it's a really thorough investigation, and not finding any lactobacillus or any bifidobacterium in her stool is a key indicator that her immune system is basically on the floor. So you can imagine what happened when she took the course of antibiotics for her ear infection. It just pushed her body into overdrive, and it basically floored her. So it was really good for us to be able to identify what was going on with that, and we knew we had a lot of work to do. At the same time, we also realised that there was some imbalanced flora there. So when we look at imbalanced flora, we're kind of looking at what's going on with all the different bacteria in the gut. And it's not that these are pathogenic bacteria. To the contrary, they're commensal, so they don't cause any problems if they're in the right proportion. But these were starting to grow more than they needed to and taking up more space than they need to. So, and that is only the result of not having sufficient levels lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. So that's fairly easy to address if you're addressing just kind of rebalancing the lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. You wouldn't want to do any specific work on killing those off. What was more concerning was finding the dysbiotic flora. So here you can see that she has a species called Citrobacter fruindi. So this particular species can actually cause diarrhea, and it can cause really watery stools. It's kind of linked into the E. coli bacteria. So And it's also a gram-negative bacteria. So the problem with that is gram-negative bacteria in the outer cell wall, they have endotoxins within that. So these are lipopolysaccharides that can actually fuel inflammation in the body. So for her, she was experiencing muscle pains and spasms and cramps, and she was feeling incredibly fatigued. So one of the reasons for that could very well have been the fact that the endotoxins was fueling that process. So the other thing that we looked at was trying to understand whether there was candida. So in this case, actually, it's only a 1+, which isn't really a problem normally. So if someone was not symptomatic, I wouldn't be too alarmed by that. But the fact that she has been symptomatic for a long time, so she's had thrush since she was a teenager, and she was having UTIs. So for me, that was definitely a red flag that I knew we needed to address. There's obviously a lot going on in the stool assessment test, and I'm not going to go into everything today, but I really wanted to talk about those two areas. I also just going to quickly flick over and just look at what's going on with the digestion, because this is another really important part when you look at stool assessment, because obviously you want to see how well you're breaking down your nutrients, whether you're assimilating and whether your body can absorb them. So that's important. The other markers you want to be looking for is to see if there's actually inflammation in the gut. So this part of the stool assessment can kind of help us with this. So these are the inflammation markers, and you can see here that actually they're not too bad. They're all well within range. The secretory IgA, which is a really important marker, was out of range. So this was elevated. So this actually works. It sits really well for me. So I wasn't surprised to see this because she's got the dysbiotic bacteria there. She's got the citrofroidi bacteria present. And so the fact that it's elevated is just an indication for us that her immune system is doing what it's supposed to be doing, and it's trying to deal with this dysbiotic bacteria. Actually, and at the same time, we could look at what was going on in terms of digestion. So pancreatic elastase is a group of enzymes secreted by your pancreas. And whilst hers is over 200, which is good, and it's in the green, optimally, we really want that around 500. So there was some work to do around there, around this. And also you can see that there's a little bit of fat stains coming through into the stool, which can indicate that she's not actually doing so well in breaking down the fats. So what did we do? Well, we had a lot of work to do around her nervous system because she was feeling incredibly anxious because she wasn't sure what was going on. She'd already had loads of blood tests, endoscopies, investigations by the GP, and she just wasn't sure why her body was reacting. Because it's one thing having GI symptoms because you can think it's your gut, but when you start having blurred vision and you're having muscle pains and pins and needles and you can't sleep, and you're so fatigued you had to stop work, then you kind of always fear for the worst. So we had to do a lot of work around her nervous system and sympathetic nervous system. We had to do a huge amount of work around inflammation and her immune system. But we did a full gut healing protocol, and 6 months down the line, she's been back at work. Her stools are completely normal. Her energy is back to normal. Her hormones are actually better than before and seem to be much more regular and not as symptomatic in terms of PMS. And also on top of that, she's not experiencing any muscle aches or pains or headaches or blurred vision. And her thrush and her UTIs have also all cleared up. So it's really good after only a short space of time, but the biggest work we had to do is to try and work on building up that lactobacillus and bifidobacterium, and it's going to be ongoing work for her because for her that is really, really low. But I wanted to talk about this today because I think it's really important that people understand that very often it is very much about investing in getting the right testing so that you can understand what's going on in your body so that you can take the right necessary actions to address what needs to be addressed. Because for her, it's been a complete game changer doing this comprehensive stool assessment, and it's given her life back, and she's only 28, so she wants to live a life and enjoy that. So I hope you've all found it helpful. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions if anyone's got any on comprehensive stool assessments. I am going to try and post this again on my feed. I didn't do so well on the previous one, so hopefully this one goes through. But yes, thanks for watching and have a lovely day. Bye bye.